Jeff, what brings us to Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island? A stroll on the beach?
Ray, we're here by Pojak Point, looking into an ancient mystery that may shake up the history books we all read in school all those years ago.
Ooh, what are we looking for? The Holy Grail?
Well,
Egyptian pyramids?
no, nothing like that. We're looking for a controversial rock with an ancient Viking message carved into it. Hi, I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 55 of the New England Legends podcast.
Woohoo!
If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
And I'm Ray Auger. We're on a mission to chronicle every legend in New England, one story and 1 week at a time.
That we are.
If you don't already subscribe to our podcast, you can do it for free on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also do us a big favor by posting a review on those sites.
Please, please, please.
Those reviews go a long way in increasing our visibility so others can find and share these stories. All right, Jeff, we're looking for signs of ancient Vikings here in Rhode Island?
That's exactly what we're doing, Ray. We're looking for a 2.5-ton rock with some strange markings carved into it.
Wow.
An ancient language using the runic alphabet, which was used in Germany and parts of Scandinavia centuries ago.
Wait a minute, I've heard of this.
You have?
Yes, we're looking for the Narragansett Rune Stone.
That we are. It's also been called Quidnesset Rock. It's a stone slab about the size of the hood of a car with strange markings carved into it. And our quest is to find it and see if we can figure it out. But before we get too far into the surf here, do you want the good news or the bad news?
Let's start with the bad news.
Okay, well, the rock isn't located on this beach anymore, so basically we're in the wrong place.
Okay, well, what's the good news?
The good news is I think I know where it is. Like Plymouth Rock, another famous New England boulder we discussed back in episode 14, the Narragansett Rune Stone has been moved all around town.
All right, well, we go through a bit of trouble for our rocks here in New England, don't we?
We do. And why don't you take us back to the beginning on this one, Ray?
All right, what's more interesting to me is the discovery of this stone doesn't go that far back.
Okay.
We're not talking millennia or even centuries. Just a few decades to the 1980s when people started talking about it.
The 1980s?
1980s.
Back when we were wearing parachute pants and sporting mullets?
That's the decade.
Okay, well, what happened?
All right, so back in the 1980s, during low tide, enough people noticed the strange markings on this rock in Narragansett Bay that it caught the attention of the New England Antiquities Research Association, or NERA.
We're big fans of NERA here at New England Legends. They're a group of professional and lay archaeologists who study some of the countless finds and curiosities that pop up in the region.
Exactly. So NERA researches the rock and published several papers on their findings.
The biggest question I have is, how come this didn't show up until the 1980s?
Well, that's exactly addressed in the findings. They believe the rock may have been buried for centuries, that it only surfaced in the last 70 years or so.
Okay, wait a minute. How does a rock mysteriously surface?
Well, something big happened right here in 1938. A hurricane. So a hurricane ripped through this area, hitting Pojak Point, causing massive erosion and forever altering the shoreline.
Okay, I get it. So once the shoreline changes, the way the tide erodes the area changes, and this rock makes its way to the surface.
Well, that's one possibility. Where they found the stone was only 20 feet from the lowest point of low tide.
Okay.
So you're talking about a narrow window of visibility twice a day, only in the last half century.
All right, got it.
And it may just be proof that Europeans, namely Vikings, were in Rhode Island between 600 and 1000 AD.
Well, that's a long time before Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492.
It certainly is.
That's kind of cool, isn't it? I mean, the idea that this ancient message could come to the surface so many centuries later.
Yeah, but what is the message?
Since NERA began studying this rock in the 1980s, something magical happened.
What's that?
Its legend grew.
Ooh.
Some other people started coming here to find the rock and ponder the questions it poses. More researchers began to take notice and wanted to study the inscription, and that started to make some locals here a little bit upset.
I guess no one likes gawkers on this pristine beach.
That's exactly right. Fast forward to sometime in 2012, and the Narragansett Rune Stone suddenly becomes the most important rock in Rhode Island.
Okay, but what happened in 2012?
The Narragansett Rune Stone was stolen.
Wait. Someone stole a 2.5-ton rock from the beach? How do you even do that?
It's kind of like when you used to move apartments, you know, you'd promise your buddies pizza and beer, right?
Yeah, but that's a lot of pizza and beer.
We don't know exactly how it was stolen, just that the stone was gone. And suddenly the state of Rhode Island cared quite a bit about the rock with strange markings. This spot here by the beach was now a crime scene. And some people high up in the state wanted that stone back.
Oh, so now we have a crime.
Ray, if I asked you what the most famous painting in the world is, you would say...
Dogs playing poker.
No, come on.
All right, then I'd have to say it's the Mona Lisa by Da Vinci.
Exactly. About a decade ago, I got to see that painting in the Louvre in Paris. And I recall walking down this incredible gallery surrounded by these masterpieces, these huge paintings. And then there's this stark wall with this one lone painting and a crowd of people all around it. And all I could say is,
Whoa, no. You're standing in front of the Mona Lisa
Yep.
and all you can muster up is,
Yeah, that's what happened. And while Da Vinci was a master, and it's a fine painting to be sure, I guess I was more in awe of its fame than the actual painting. So it turns out a big part of the reason the Mona Lisa is the most famous painting in the world is because in 1911, it was stolen.
Oh.
Suddenly, it became the point of pride to get this thing back. It made all the papers. The world was suddenly looking for a thing they really hadn't heard about before then. So the New York Times runs a headline stating 60 detectives were out looking for this thing. The painting was so hot that the thief who stole it couldn't unload it. Everyone was looking for it. And then, 28 months later, hoping that the heat had died down enough, this thief tried to sell the painting to an Italian gallery who busted him. The painting was returned to the Louvre, and now it's the most famous painting in the world.
I hadn't really heard about the theft. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I just knew that the painting was famous, of course.
When the Narragansett Rune Stone was stolen, its legend got a shot of steroids in the arm. Suddenly, people were looking for it, asking what it is, where it had gone, and what it means.
Well, reading through the news, I see that after 8 months of being missing, the state received an anonymous tip as to where they could find the rune stone. It was recovered and then brought to the University of Rhode Island School of Oceanography in Narragansett for study.
So the people who live nearby, and I say people because this is a bigger than a one-man job, we suspect were tired of the folks looking for the stone in their neighborhood. Once the rock was brought to the university, their problems were solved either way, and no charges were ever filed.
So now the rock can be properly studied and deciphered, right?
Well, there is one more problem.
What's that?
A Providence man claims this rock is a hoax.
Ooh, the plot thickens.
Everett Brown of Providence, Rhode Island, has claimed on numerous occasions that he personally carved those runes into the stone back in the 1960s when he was just a teenager.
Oh, man, what a bummer. So that's it then?
Well, not exactly. The folks at NERA interviewed as many locals as they could find about the rock, and they gathered multiple affidavits that the runes were there at least as early as 1948.
Okay, so that predates Everett Brown. Why would he lie about something like this?
Ray, this is the kind of thing that happens all the time when it comes to legends. People always want to become part of the story. And what bigger part could one play than to claim to be the source?
Yeah, but that muddies the waters when picking these things apart, doesn't it?
I get it. It does. And it's kept Everett Brown in the story for decades now. And one problem when it comes to dating these types of finds is you can't carbon date a rock or the carvings. You can look for signs of machines being involved, and in this case, there are none. And you can look for signs of weathering, like the symbols were carved and then worn down over centuries of tides.
But if the stone was buried for centuries, that weathering wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. So now we fast forward to 2015, and now the stone is part of the cultural heritage of Rhode Island. Are you ready to see it, Ray?
You bet I am.
All right, let's take a ride over to Wickford, Rhode Island, to Library Park in the downtown area.
Well, that's hard to miss.
There it is for all to see.
Wow.
The rock was moved here in October of 2015 for public display.
I can see the runic symbols carved right in the face of it. But what does it say there?
In the spring of 1991, Susan O. Carlson wrote in the New England Antiquities Research Association Journal that the letters translate to the word, and please forgive me, my Nordic is non-existent at best, Skjaventaflot, and it means the Screaming River.
That wasn't bad. It is spooky, though, right? Screaming River?
It's supposed to be named after a river in Iceland. The thought being that the people who carved this may have come from that region and they tagged this rock over a millennia ago in order to tell others, they were here.
Well, it's pretty well established that Vikings were in North America long before Columbus,
True.
right?
Yep.
They were in the Maritimes of Canada, out on Cape Cod.
Yep.
And as we stare today at the Narragansett Rune Stone, I can't help but think they made it all the way down here to Rhode Island, too.
It's human nature to explore and push boundaries and leave some sign behind. I mean, there's a reason we left the flag on the moon, right?
That's right. Jeff, I learned something today.
Well, what's that, Ray?
Well, if you really want to make lots of people care about something and really pay attention, maybe you have to steal it. I love how ancient graffiti can keep us talking potentially more than 1,000 years after the fact.
That's the power of a legend. It connects us with our past and those who came here before us.
Speaking of old stones, we got a voicemail on our legend line this week about a haunted headstone in New Hampshire. Take a listen.
Hi guys, this is Tracy from northern New Hampshire. I'm wondering if you've ever heard the story of Peter Poor. He was supposed to have been the last white man killed by Indians. In fact, that was actually engraved on his tombstone. His stone was located down a short trail off of North Road in Shelburne, New Hampshire. I actually saw the stone myself as a teenager. It was sort of a rite of passage, being dared to walk out to his grave at night. The story was that if you turned the turnstile when entering the trail to his grave, he would haunt you. The turnstile is still there, however the stone has since mysteriously been removed. I would love to hear more about his story. Thanks, guys. Love your podcast.
Well, it sounds like Tracy has been hunting legends since she was a teenager. Thanks for sharing your legend with us, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
You can call or text our legend line anytime at 617-444-9683, and we might share your story in a future podcast.
We love getting leads from you guys there and in our super secret Facebook group. Find out more ways to connect with us and see our entire archive of shows at our snazzy new website, OurNewEnglandLegends.com. Our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.